In this screencast, we're going to talk about connectives. Now, these are linking words that we use in the middle of a paragraph, which help to improve the structure, and it tells the reader exactly what type of information is going to happen next. So when I refer to connectives, I'm usually talking about single words, which are usually adverbs, or small expressions which can be used at the start of a sentence to link it with the previous sentence. These expressions are followed by a comma. The main purposes of these connectives that we talk about today are to add an additional point which supports what we've already said. These points will always be directly related, or to introduce an example, or to talk about the effect of a previous sentence, or to show the reader, to signpost, that we're going to give an opposing point of view. All of these language expressions are used in the same way. So they come after a first sentence, so they come after a full stop, they begin with a capital letter, and they're followed by a comma. After this comma, we can then write a complete clause, which is a subject, a verb, and an object, in much the same way that you would write a normal sentence. Please note, there are other ways that these expressions can be used. So they can be used in the middle of a sentence to form a complex sentence, but I'm not going to talk about those today. What I'm talking about is using connectives at the start of a sentence, which help to improve the structure of our academic writing. So, to start with, for an additional idea, can we use "and" at the beginning of a sentence? Well, if we're on Facebook, if we're on Instagram, if we're sending a text message, then sure, go for it. But in academic writing, we'd prefer not to see that, so the answer is a definite no. We want to see more academic words and more sophisticated language being used. So, in academic writing, which we're being asked to do for this Writing Like a Scientist project, is we can use in addition, additionally, furthermore, or moreover. So let's take the example that we used in the model paragraph that we discussed in a previous lesson. So if a smoker smokes an excessive amount of cigarettes, these cancerous chemicals will mutate the DNA in the lungs, which can lead to lung cancer. In addition, comma, Cancer Research UK, which then goes on to talk about the statistics. As we can see, more information has been added. So it's talked about the danger, and the added information is now the statistics of what percentage of lung cancer cases are actually caused by smoking, according to Cancer Research. As we can see, it comes after a sentence, so it comes after a full stop. The expression has been followed by a comma. Now, additionally, furthermore, and moreover can all be used in exactly the same way, and as we can see, there's a comma after each of them. Now, this is a really nice way of linking our writing together. An advantage of doing this is that it can keep our sentences slightly shorter, which means we're more likely to be accurate in our writing. As we can also see, after the comma, we have a clause. So we have Cancer Research UK, which is the subject of the new sentence, states, which is the verb, and then we have the object of the sentence following that. If we move on to but, can we use but to start a sentence, to offer an alternative point of view? Absolutely not. Again, with our friends, there's no problem in doing that, but in academic writing, we expect more sophisticated language. So alternative expressions would be in contrast, however, or nevertheless. Now, most of the time people use however, which is no problem, but in contrast and nevertheless are alternatives if you'd like to use it. So if we use a sentence which is related to the example paragraph we looked at in lesson with your teacher, is, as already has been determined in this essay, smoking is a significant cause of cancer. However, comma, there are also alternative causes. So we've used however to show we're now going to talk about something different. However has been the start of a new sentence. It's after the full stop and it's followed by a comma. And as we talked about previously, in contrast and nevertheless can be used in exactly the same way, and the connective is followed by a comma. After that, we have the subject, verb, and object, like in the previous case, so there being the subject, are being the verb, and alternative clauses being the object. Now, if we want to show an effect of the previous sentence, again, talking to friends, we can use so at the beginning of a sentence. But in academic writing, we really don't want to see this. What we'd like to see are phrases such as therefore, as a result, consequently, as a consequence, or thus. Now, it's important to bear in mind that the cause will always be the first sentence, the effect the second. So in this case, smokers inhale cancerous chemicals through smoking. As a consequence, the DNA in the lung cells is likely to be mutated. So as we can see here, the smoking and the inhaling of cancerous chemicals during the activity of smoking is the cause, and the result of breathing in this smoke is the damage to the DNA in the lungs. We've used as a consequence to show it's a direct result of. As we can see again, it's at the beginning of a new sentence, so it's following a full stop, as a consequence, and it's followed by a comma. I know this sounds repetitive, but all of these words are used in the same way, and it's a really good way of writing academically. As we can see, the commas immediately after the connective, and therefore, consequently, thus, as a result, are all used in exactly the same way. Now, if we're introducing examples, again, the phrases that we can use are for example, for instance, to elaborate and to illustrate. And in exactly the same way, it's at the beginning of a second sentence, followed by a comma, and then a clause afterwards. So, a significant number of cancer cases are due to smoking, and then I've reworded the paragraph that we looked at before. So, full stop, for example, comma, approximately 80% of reported incidences of lung cancer are caused by this bad habit. For example, could be replaced in the same way as, for instance, to elaborate and to illustrate, all followed by the comma. So as we can see, these connectives are relatively simple to use, and they all follow the same rules. But by using them, we're supporting our topic sentence, we're supporting our thesis statement by signposting to the reader exactly what we're going to write about. If they see in addition, they know it's a new supporting idea. If they see however, or in contrast, they know it's a opposing point of view or a different point of view from what we've already talked about. If we're using as a result, therefore, as a consequence, the reader knows we're talking about the effect of the previous action, and they know that if we're using for example or for instance, we're giving an example of what we've just talked about. And this is a really good habit to be in for academic writing, to show the reader exactly what's coming next. So to summarize, connectives help our writing to become more structured and organized by telling the reader exactly what's going to come next. They act as signposts. They come at the beginning of a new sentence to link it to the previous sentence. So we'll see it after a full stop. And they're usually, or they're always actually, followed by a comma. Then after the comma, we're going to see the subject, verb, object, or a clause, which then completes the sentence. So please try to use connectives where appropriate in your writing, as this is going to help the structure and help the reader to follow what you're writing more easily.